For anyone who has even remotely been paying attention to all the news, it's tariffs almost all the time, especially as we see responses coming out of China. It may feel like there is a lot of chaos going on. I mean, you look at the stock market, people are a little nervous, but could there be order to all of it? And could the situation be unfolding just as the Trump administration anticipated? Well, here now with his insights is John Solomon, CEO and editor-in-chief of Just the News and host of John Solomon Reports. John, thanks for joining us. Welcome to Washington Watch.
Yeah. Good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Well, let me get your initial reaction. I know we're, a week and a half into this, but let me get your initial reaction to President Trump's Liberation Day announcement.
Yeah, listen, I think a lot of people, and they do so at the expense of their own reputations, they tend to think that Donald Trump is completely impulsive, and I think they're missing a big part of this. He actually had a plan, and when he decided to do this, he moved it up as quickly because he saw a couple of elements in the economy. Inflation was running a little hot because Joe Biden left it hot when he left office. He saw a moment where inflation was going to go down with energy prices dropping quickly. OPEC was announcing increased production, which would further bring pressure down on prices. Of course, energy prices go down, the whole economy's prices go down. And he saw this ideal moment. And so he sped up his plan for tariffs because he could hit an economic window where you could tap the brakes on parts of the economy that weren't that were running a little hot, take advantage of some price dips, which could absorb potentially a little bit of inflation caused by tariffs, and then begin the greatest negotiation in American history, which is let's have 100 countries negotiate with America at once and see if we can get better trade deals than what we've had. And thus far, 10 days in, the market is kind of back to where it was before the tariff announcement. So we haven't lost a lot of market cap anymore. You have a second element here, which is you've got 90 of those 100 countries already lined up to have conversations. Some longtime protectionist countries like Israel, in Vietnam and Cambodia, offering to drop those tariffs and protections against American products. That opens up important markets, particularly in the textile world. So Donald Trump, I think, is exactly where he wanted to be. The media maybe not understanding the four-dimensional chess he played here, but he sped up this window because he saw an opportunity in the economic data to slide this in and have minimal impact on the American people. And thus far, I think he's having. Now, listen, China's going to play hardball. It's going to take a while to revive China, but I think the truth of the matter is China without an American market isn't China at all. They need us much more than we need them.
Yeah, I want to talk about China here just a moment, but I want to agree with you from this aspect. I think people underestimate Donald Trump in terms of they misread him. And I've been watching him very closely since he first ran for president. And there have been many times initially that I said, oh, he's over. It's over. He's toast.
Yep.
He made a bet. But he is, in terms of marketing, he's brilliant. And I think he does, either he has a tremendous intuition or these steps are planned out. I've rarely seen him miss it. I will say this is a big one because you're playing with the entire economy, not just the United States, but essentially the world. But let's talk about, before we get into China, because I really want to focus on that, because that's really our biggest adversary, I think, when it comes to free trade. Let's talk about the outcomes. What's success look like here?
Right. Well, success has to be achieved before January if President Trump has any chance of faring well in the midterm elections with the Republicans. So by January, he has got to get these trade deals in place. If the United States has better trade relations with half or more of the world in the first 8 months of this tariff policy, he's going to have a roaring success because auto workers, steel workers, energy workers are all going to realize they have a better opportunity in the future than they have today. There are going to be three optics. One is, are the barriers lower? But the agreements lower barriers to American products. Two is, are there more investments coming into the United States as a result of this? He's got $7 billion announced. I'm sorry, $7 trillion announced. That's a huge number. But a lot of those things won't be built for years, so they won't be visible to the American people. But some early projects that are visible, a factory opening up, a new contract being announced, those would be important things. I think the third thing, does inflation stay low? Does he keep it down in this 2.6% range where it came in March. If he does, those three optics are very politically powerful going into the 2026 election. And Donald Trump could say, I did the impossible.
So let's talk about the impact directly on the consumer, because all of the pain that people felt under the Biden economy. Is it the inflation only, or will we see a growth in our economy as a result of this?
If the trend lines are continuing, and we're starting to see this now, hiring has come in a lot better than people thought in March. That was a big number. There are signs that people are feeling more confident about the economy. And when I mean people, I mean the people that spend money, whether it's consumers, small business owners deciding to hire or expand their company, larger companies maybe putting back some of their contraction plans that they had under President Biden because they feel there's a reason to be optimistic about the economy. So there will be economic expansion, most likely, provided that we don't have any unseen circumstances. So a growing economy with slowing inflation will be the opposite, the inverse of what Joe Biden gave us for most of his 4 years in office. That has a psychological effect on confidence, consumer confidence, voter confidence. Now, does that translate into people going to the polls in a midterm election? It's hard to determine yet. It depends what arguments President Trump makes. He'll have to nationalize the 2026 election to help Republicans win. But if he makes it an issue between his vision of the economy and what the far left had for their vision, and he has 2 years of success after 4 years of bumbling failure, I think Donald Trump can nationalize the election and take it away from local issues and potentially defy the normal history of politics, which is a midterm election for an incumbent president usually doesn't go well.
Right.
That's the strategy. Can they pull it off? We'll see.
Well, there's clearly long-term benefits in this from a standpoint of a correction of the trade imbalance that has grown over several decades as we have stopped producing and been primarily consuming when it comes to hard product. I mean, we produce intellectual goods and such, but in terms of manufacturing, that's pretty much left our shores to a large degree.
Right.
Let's talk about China. You made reference to this, and I agree with you. I think China's the big loser. They have more to lose here than we do because they need us more than we need them. But the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party, Xi, is not backing down. In fact, he's making a Southeast Asia trade tour promoting free trade among these Asian countries. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, listen, first, those Asian countries know that free doesn't mean free when it comes to China, right? Korea, Japan, they all know what it's like to deal with China. It's a one-way street with some downstream benefits, usually cash benefits short term, but long term, a lot of handcuffs and strings attached to it. So China's not going to fool anyone in the Asia realm thinking that they're going to get a good deal from China. They might get some short-term cash, but you look at Japan. What was the very first company to come to America and announce a major investment in America after the president was elected? And that was SoftBank in Japan, because Japan knows it's a much better market to play in the United States than it is with China. And so China will try this effort. It's more effective in third world continents like Africa and Latin America, where people, oftentimes the countries just need cash, right? And they're willing to trade cash for long-term assets that China wants. But in Asia, the economies are pretty mature. They're maturing, certainly even in places like Indonesia and Malaysia. And I think all of those economies would rather have a open trading relationship with the United States and the protection that comes with it, rather than the strings attached to China. So China's not going to be able to sell that too much. It's optics. What they want to do is see if they can scare Trump. I don't think Donald Trump is going to be scared by China or any of his tactics. I think his thinking is he knows China needs us more than we need them. And he's going to sweat them a little bit.
So is she playing to the U.S. media, trying to ramp up that pressure
100%.
on Trump?
100%. Yeah, listen, it's always been a sympathetic media, and it's also been a sympathetic Wall Street. One of the greatest allies to China's rise and to China's aggression against America has been our own investors in the stock markets and the commodity markets. And so they're going to try to put the squeeze there. They put some squeeze on tech products, but how did Donald Trump immediately resolve that? I'll just exempt tech products short term from the tariffs. So Donald Trump is staying one step ahead of the China pressure game. And I think the real thing is, at what time does Donald Trump say, listen, you can play this for the next 2 years if you want, or why we could sit down, have a bilateral discussion and get to a good deal? I bet you she blinks at that moment that Donald Trump makes that offer.
The other aspect, as you talk about the Chinese influence in the United States on the stock market, they also have a large influence in Washington, D.C.
They sure do.
I mean, they hire a lot of former elected officials and cabinet members to work for them, but no one has held the office of president that has, at this moment in time, this snapshot in which we're in, no one has had as much influence and has used the bully pulpit better than Donald Trump. So I don't think they're going to stand a chance if they try to exert that political influence from K Street here in D.C.
I think you're right. Donald Trump seems unencumbered from the normal forces that shape and push Washington around. He doesn't care about donations. He doesn't care about lobbyists. He doesn't seem to care about the news media that drives the narratives in Washington. He seems to have divested himself of all of those concerns after his first term, because he realized what an unfair situation he was put to in his first term, or put through in his first time. And so I think what you're seeing with Donald Trump is sort of this unencumbered, I'm focused on the American people. When I look at a decision, I'm asking, what's it going to mean to the guy getting off shift in Kalamazoo going to the bar? What's it going to mean to the mom and dad at the kitchen table? And he has stayed to that. And to his benefit, when all the panic around him was at a boiling point, he didn't look panicked at all. He looked calm. And in fact, most of his predictions came true. He said the market would come back. It came back. He said countries would be making deals. They did. He said countries would be making investments. $7 trillion comes in. He is playing the long game. The level of confidence he has, the learnings he got from his first term in office and all of the battering that went through that, and the 4 years out of office with the lawfare, has made him, I think, one of the most strategic and calculating and confident presidents we've had in a long time. They say fire makes a great iron, and I think he's forged a little bit by the incredible 8 years of suffering he went through, or certainly conflict he went through. And he just seems focused on the prize. He said on election night, promises made, promises delivered, and he's really checking that box. I'll just make one comparison, because I think it's the most important comparison. There's no comparison to Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan in personality. They're very different people. But the notion that Ronald Reagan put into play to win the Cold War with the Soviet Union, peace through strength, is exactly what Donald Trump is using to win the trade war, or to win the economic war with China. He's trying to achieve prosperity through strength. We don't have to negotiate any longer from a position of appeasement or weakness. You can have the upper hand and then make a good deal. By the way, a fair deal even for China. The prosperity through strength, I think, may be the tagline people will remember the second Trump presidency by, if he succeeds at what he's trying to do.
Well, as I said earlier, China is the one that we have to deal with the most, because we're actually funding their military and making them a military threat, a military and a strategic threat. From that sense, from the imbalance in the trade we have. We just have about 2 minutes left, John. I want to go back to, you said that, and it's right, the market has kind of settled down. We're almost back to where we were. But we had a 90-day, the president last week issuing a 90-day stay, moratorium, pause, however you want to describe it, on these tariffs while these negotiations are taking place. Are we through the turbulence, or is it going to come back, or are we out of that now?
I think a lot depends on how quickly the Trump White House, the Trump economic team, the Treasury Department can get through agreements and start announcing them. The way to keep the markets calm is to show steady and regular progress towards securing those trade agreements that are clearly going to be more fair to America than what we've endured for the last 40 years under the free trade regime. I mean, we had free trade, but it was unfair to America. Right. If you get those agreements, I think the markets stay calm. If there's a long gap without agreements, the markets are going to panic again.
Well, I think this is an educational moment for the American people to learn what free trade really is. It's free and it's fair and it's equitable, and that's not something we've seen for a while. John Solomon, I want to thank you for joining us. Great insight. And so you would say, hey, stay calm and just keep your eye on the ball.
That's it. That's the best advice I've heard all week.
All right, stay calm. All right. John, thanks for joining us.